Imagine waking up one morning to find your life savings gone. Not stolen by a hacker, not lost in a market crash. Gone because the man you trusted, the man on magazine covers, the man shaking hands with presidents and celebrities, had been lying to your face the entire time. That is exactly what happened to over 1 million people in November 2022. Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF as everyone called him, built what looked like a financial empire. FTX, his cryptocurrency exchange, was valued at $32 billion. He was on the cover of Forbes. He testified before Congress. He donated hundreds of millions to charity. He dressed in cargo shorts and played video games during investor calls, and somehow that made people trust him more. But underneath the messy hair and the altruistic speeches was one of the biggest financial frauds in American history. And here's the part that will genuinely shock you. It did not unravel slowly. The entire empire collapsed in just 10 days. All because of a single leaked spreadsheet. This is the story of the lie that destroyed FTX, and how one document started a countdown that nobody could stop. On November 2, 2022, a crypto news outlet called CoinDesk published a story that seemed at first glance like dry financial reporting. They had obtained a leaked balance sheet from Alameda Research, a trading firm secretly run by SBF's inner circle. The balance sheet revealed something alarming. Alameda's largest single asset was not cash, not Bitcoin, not a stable store of value. It was FTT, the native token that FTX itself had created, to the tune of $5.8 billion. FTT was a token that FTX controlled and essentially printed. Using it as the backbone of your balance sheet is like borrowing money and using your own IOU as collateral. It only works if nobody ever questions it. For a long time, nobody did. 4 days later, a rival exchange made a short public announcement. They were selling their entire holding in the token. The message was brief. The impact on the market was immediate and severe, triggering a wave of concern among investors worldwide. Within hours, panic spread. If the biggest exchange in the world was dumping FTT, what did they know? People started withdrawing their funds. Then more people. Then everyone. Within 72 hours, FTX was facing more than $6 billion in withdrawal requests. And FTX could not pay. That single fact ripped away every illusion SBF had carefully constructed. Because a legitimate exchange always has your money. That is the entire point. If you deposit funds, those funds are supposed to sit there, safe, waiting for you. FTX had secretly moved the money. Approximately $10 billion in customer funds had been quietly transferred from FTX to Alameda Research, not invested on behalf of customers, not put into safe assets, transferred to fund Alameda's own risky trading bets and cover its losses. This was not a gray area. This was not a technicality or a regulatory loophole. What happened to customer deposits was a clear and deliberate violation. Customer funds are considered protected property in any financial institution, not to be touched under any circumstances. SBF knew this. Everyone at FTX knew this. They did it anyway. On November 8th, CZ offered a rescue deal. Binance would acquire FTX. For about 24 hours, it looked like disaster might be averted. But when Binance's team looked at the actual books, they walked away immediately. The hole was too deep, too rotten, too deliberate to fix. 3 days later, the company filed for protection from creditors. The gap in customer funds was estimated at $8 billion. The founder stepped down from his role. A veteran corporate restructuring expert, one of the most experienced in the business, was brought in to manage what remained. After reviewing FTX, Ray stated plainly that this was the worst failure of corporate controls he had ever seen in his entire career. Worse than Enron. That is not a small statement. So how exactly does something this large stay hidden for so long? The answer is a combination of complexity, reputation, and the complete absence of oversight. The company had registered separate entities across many different countries, and its internal record-keeping was, to put it charitably, in complete disarray. Ray later described FTX's bookkeeping as being done in QuickBooks, the software small businesses use, for a company handling billions in daily transactions. There were no proper financial controls, no independent board, no genuine oversight whatsoever. SBF had also built an almost impenetrable wall of public credibility. He had lobbied Congress, met with regulators, and positioned himself as the responsible face of crypto, the guy who wanted rules and transparency. That reputation made it very difficult for anyone to raise serious red flags, and the nature of cryptocurrency made it easier to obscure the movements of money. Billions could flow between wallets with minimal paper trails, at least from the outside looking in. But once the mask slipped, it slipped completely. Investigators found that FTX had used a secret backdoor built into its accounting software, allowing Alameda to borrow funds without triggering any internal alerts. This was not an accident. This was engineered deception, built into the foundation of the company from the very beginning. On December 12, 2022, Sam Bankman-Fried was arrested in the Bahamas and extradited to the United States. He stood trial in October 2023. Despite a defense that tried to portray him as well-intentioned but disorganized, the jury was not convinced. He was convicted on all 7 counts of fraud and conspiracy in November 2023. In March 2024, he was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Over 1 million customers are still waiting to recover what they lost. The story of FTX is not really a crypto story. It is a human story about how charisma can masquerade as competence, how trust can be weaponized, and how quickly an empire built on lies will fall the moment someone simply asks to see the receipts. A spreadsheet did what regulators failed to do for years. If you found this story as jaw-dropping as we did, subscribe right now. We cover the biggest financial collapses, frauds, and power plays in modern history, broken down so anyone can understand them.